Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the cell cycle, which is Unit 8.
If you think your life is hectic, imagine what life is like for your cells. There are approximately 100 trillion cells in the human body. That's 30 times as many stars as there are in all the known galaxies. Every minute, just over 200 million cells in our body die, but each day, an adult human body creates hundreds of billions of new cells. This means that over the course of 10 years, every single cell in our body will have completely been replaced. Your current self will share no physical matter with your future self. In that same 10 years, a cell could circulate your body 5,256,000 times, each cell taking only 60 seconds for each circulation. Our blood vessels add up to 60,000 miles in length, which is long enough to wrap around the world more than 2 times. On that note, the longest cell in our body is the motor neuron cell. It's almost twice as long as the shortest man in recorded human history. Meanwhile, the largest cell in the human body is the female egg, which is visible to the human eye, while the sperm cell is the smallest cell. Speaking of reproduction, our cells make copies of themselves through something called the DNA replication cycle. As we age, this cycle becomes damaged. By age 70, our DNA replication cycle can become so damaged by daily exposure to environmental toxins and poor lifestyle that hundreds of sections of our DNA become ineffective. This makes us more susceptible to developing diseases. The good thing is, we have the power to do a few simple things to change that. Did you know that laughing improves our cells' abilities to heal themselves? That's no laughing matter.
Okay, so cell division or mitosis notes. Cell division is the process by which cells divide into 2 new cells. So in this image you can see we start with one cell right here. And then we can start to see it divide into 2 cells. And these 2 cells then start to divide into, right here it's dividing into 3, kind of going into 4 cells and so on until we have multiple cells. Why do cells need to divide? So living things grow by producing more cells. Okay? We do not grow because our cells just increase in size. So know that we grow because we actually produce more cells. Cells need to divide also to repair damaged tissue. And cells need to divide if a cell gets too big, it cannot get enough nutrients into the cell and it can't get rid of waste because it's too big, so it needs to divide in that case as well. This is just showing how we have our epidermis, which is our skin right here, and we have a blood clot from like a wound. So we scrape ourselves and we produce what's called a scab. And then underneath the scab, we start regenerating the skin or the epithelium. And then eventually that scab will fall off and our skin is good as new. So we have these cells are growing and dividing, in this case, for number 2, which is repairing damaged tissue. The original cell is called the parent cell. And that from that parent cell, this should say 2, new cells are formed, and those are called daughter cells. Before cell division occurs, the cell replicates, also known as copies, all of its DNA, so that each daughter cell can get a complete set of genetic information from the parent cell. Each daughter cell is exactly like the parent cell. They are the same kind and number of chromosomes as the original cell. They're just exact copies. So here we can see our cell, and the DNA starts to replicate, so then you kind of get 2 of these. And then each one of these gets pulled to its side, And so we're left with two daughter cells. These are the daughters. And this is the parent cell. And you can see they look identical. So parent cell and the two daughter cells. So many organisms, especially ones that are unicellular, if you recall, those are single-celled organisms, they produce by something called asexual reproduction. So an example of that is bacteria. So they do not have, as humans have, a sperm and an egg to reproduce. They simply kind of divide amongst themselves. So cells actually undergo a cycle of time, and so it's a series of events that they go through as they grow and divide. So initially the cell grows, and so that is this. We'll talk about this drawing in more depth later on, but just to kind of get the basics here. This is called G1 phase, and this is the cell growth phase. Then the cell will undergo what's called the S phase, which is that DNA replication. So it can make copies of its DNA, so the daughter cells are identical to the parent cell. And then it goes into this G2 phase, which is the preparation for mitosis. And mitosis is the division of the cell. So most of the cell, if you look at this, most of the cell is in this cycle right here. Which, if you look right here, this is the purple section, and that is known as interphase. So most of the cell is in interphase. Then the cell goes into what's called the second part. So we either have interphase or M phase. And M phase is actually made up of two parts called mitosis or cytokinesis. So mitosis is made up of different stages. We have prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. So it starts, and that is part of all of the M phase is this cell division. And then cytokinesis is actually when it forms the two daughter cells. So for number 3 here, that it divides, that's kind of mitosis. And when it forms the two daughter cells, that would probably be considered cytokinesis. And then it begins in the cell cycle again, which is that growth and development, DNA replication, and preparation for mitosis. That whole phase is called interphase. So now you're going to work on coloring your diagram, and according to the directions on it, that will be due for class tomorrow.